Charizard is probably the most popular Pokemon of all time. Everybody and their mother loves Charizard, especially Game Freak. Let's be honest, he's a little overhyped, right? All these different forms and versions, it's all a bit much. So today, I want to try something a little different. I want to prove once and for all that we don't need no stinking Charizard. I want to give some love to my day one, the little guy who got us Charizard in the first place. And that's why I decided to try to beat Pokemon Fire Red using only Charmander. Is it possible? Can this little guy go all the way? Let's find out. I load into the game and give myself my nickname from high school, and since this is a Charmander only playthrough, I decide to give my rival the scariest name that I could think of. I make my way over to Professor Oak's lab, and this is where we start our very first grind. Since the first two gyms will be some of the hardest in the playthrough, I need to soft reset to find myself a Charmander. But not just any Charmander, the best Charmander. And thankfully, pretty quickly, I'm able to find just that when I get a lonely-natured boy. I know that I'm gonna need all the help that I can get to beat this run, so I decide to give him a name that will strike fear deep into the hearts of our enemies. A name so intimidating that our foes may just crumble at its very sound. Felton. A lonely nature is good because it gives us a nice attack increase, which will be our main offensive stat early on in the game. After laying the smackdown on Water and his Squirtle, I start to travel towards Pewter City to face potentially the hardest battle of the run. You see, Charmander being a fire type makes him extremely weak to rock types, which just so happens to be the type that the first gym leader Brock specializes in. However, after leveling up to level 13, Charmander gets access to the move Metal Claw, which not only is super effective against Brock and his rocks, but also has a 10% chance to increase my attack stat. This will be extremely helpful. So after breezing through the early routes, we can give our initial strategy a go against Brock. And so I begin to spam Metal Claw while Geodude luckily goes for a defense curl. I'm not liking my odds so far, since after 2 Metal Claws, I still have yet to get the elusive attack boost. So I decide I should change up my strategy and start to hit Geodude with Ember, since this is a special move that ignores its boosted defense. After taking it out with a few flames, out comes Onix. For the first gym leader, Onix is an insanely overpowered Pokemon. I mean, this thing has a base stat total of 385, but 160 of those stats are in its defense. That's a higher defense stat than Registeel. But even with those boosts, I still need to get lucky enough to have Onix miss on some Rock Tombs, which of course doesn't happen, and it instantly knocks out Felton. On my second attempt, I was able to get lucky and get 2 attack boosts off of Metal Clawing the Geodude. This is extremely good, but unfortunately, Onix immediately knocks out Felton with its very first Rock Tomb. I try this battle again, and I lose. Then again, and again, and again. At this point, I'm realizing that this battle is a true test, and just brute forcing my way through is not gonna work. So I try a different tactic. On Route 22, you can find wild Mankey, so I go ahead and start culling the local monkey population in order to get some attack EVs for my Charmander. If I can boost my attack stat enough, I can potentially take out the Geodude in one hit, and if I get lucky enough to get an attack boost from that hit, I could potentially take out the Onix too. I level up Charmander to level 18, then head back into the gym to put Felton right back into the glorified dogfighting arena. I hit Geodude with Metal Claw as he misses a tackle, then I hit him with a second Metal Claw and finally get myself an attack boost. I hit Onix with another boosted Metal Claw and deal half his HP as he fires back with an extremely scary Rock Tomb. But for some reason, on the next turn, it decides to go for a tackle? Which leaves me in the perfect position to finally beat this slippery rock snake. Now we can finally kick back and relax for the rest of the playthrough, right? I leave Pewter City and find this kooky scientist who teaches me how to run, and at this point I was thinking about all the things that I need to do to beat the game, and I realized, how am I going to surf the seas of Kanto with just a Charmander? I mean, if its tail even touches water, it just dies. We can't risk Felton like that. So I catch a female Nidoran, which is low-key extremely lucky, since in Fire Red it has just a 1% chance to actually spawn here. Hopefully that luck continues for us for the rest of this challenge. Anyway, then I make my way up to Mount Mount Moon, but not before cramming my HM slave into the PC. Team Rocket is up to some weird business inside of the cave, so I use my Charmander to turn Team Rocket into Team Magma, if you catch my drift here. And just like that, I arrive in Cerulean City, where I have two incredibly challenging fights waiting for me. My rival challenges me first as I try to head up to the Nugget Bridge, and I try the same strategy I used against Brock, spamming Metal Claw and praying I get an attack boost. But our rival's Pidgeotto has one of the most irritating moves ever added into Pokemon, Sand Attack. Metal Claw does pretty horrendous damage to Pidgeotto, and if I'm not getting the attack boost, his sand attacks can just completely ruin the fight. I managed to take out the Pidgeotto, but I'm already way too low on health for his real threat, Squirtle. This is where I remember that water types actually resist steel type attacks, so my strategy of spamming Metal Claw here is completely pointless, and my rival Squirtle is able to take out Felton. Thankfully though, I can leave this fight behind and instead try to see how things go against Misty at this point. As you might expect, they don't go great. So I decide that maybe I should keep trying to beat my rival. Try the fight a couple more times, but of course my Charmander is not powerful enough to win this battle quite yet. At this point, I'm completely stumped. I'm stuck between a rock and a hard place, and there was a point where I started to think the run was actually dead. But I focused up and tried my luck against water one more time. As always, our rival starts off with his Pidgeotto, which is definitely a threat, but then he switches to Squirtle for some reason. I had attempted this battle a ton of times, and Pidgeotto had literally never switched out this early. This is amazing news for me as I hit a Metal Claw into Squirtle and actually get the attack boost. This is the one. I scratch Squirtle on the next turn and get a critical hit, which is just enough to take it out. Surely I can't fail now. Pidgeotto comes back out, and thanks to him already being low on health, I take him out after just 2 attacks. Then out comes Rattata, who goes down to a single Metal Claw. And finally, Water brings in his Abra, who gets completely cooked by our happy little Blowtorch. We finally did it! We beat our rival and actually made some progress. This was a huge step after hours of being stuck in this town, but one problem still loomed, and that was, of course, Misty. But I remembered that now that I had defeated our rival, there was actually a physical attack Charmander can get that Misty's water types don't resist. But in order to get this elusive move, I first need to help out a mad scientist who has accidentally turned himself into a Pokemon. Why he would want to do this is anyone's guess, and I really don't care to find out. After I help Bill turn back into a human, I get access to the TM for Dig. I teach Charmander how to use Dig, and then we head into the Cerulean Gym, where I immediately lose. Even though my Charmander is significantly over-leveled for this gym, Starmie is way too fast for me with a base speed stat of 115 compared to Charmander's, which is only 65. I try this battle a couple more times, but Dig is not doing nearly enough damage, and Starmie's Water Pulses two-shot our Charmander. So I need to do what any pro Pokemon master would do in this situation. I need to go out and grind. I defeat countless Mankey and Ekans to get both attack and speed EVs. After successfully placing Mankey on the endangered Pokemon list, I'm hopefully in a far better spot to take on Misty. So I head back to the Cerulean Gym to try my luck yet again. This time at level 31, I'm even more over-leveled than I was before, but being at level 31 also gives our little Felton access to the powerful fire-type attack Flamethrower, which should come in handy. I run up to Misty and our battle commences. Out comes Staryu, so I hit it with Scratch, immediately putting it below half health while Staryu sets up Harden. I hit it with another Scratch to take it out, which brings me face to face with the real threat, Starmie. It turns out that our grinding has paid off, and at this point we're actually speed tied with this swift starfish. If I can get really lucky on this speed tie, then I can potentially go first on turn 1 by using Dig, and then go second on turn 2. This makes it so we would avoid all of her water pulses, and makes Felton effectively invincible. By some miracle, this works on our very first try. I get the perfect speed tie luck and manage to defeat Misty. With Misty defeated, we have 3 of our biggest hurdles out of our way. And I wish that I could say from here on out it was easy. So I hold off on the celebration and head towards the next gym in Vermilion City. But in order to get into the gym, first I need the HM cut, so I decide to take a nice little pleasure cruise on the SS Anne. While aboard, I fight my rival Water on the water, and I'll be honest, I wish this dude was a little bit more original. Anyway, we take on our rival, and thankfully this battle is nowhere near as hard as the last one. At this point, Charmander has a decent moveset and is pretty overleveled, so water can't really keep up. Once we reach land again after the cruise, the same thing happens to Lieutenant Surge. Before we went into the gym, I completely forgot to heal, but since we were so overleveled and we had the move Dig, I easily took out Lieutenant Surge and his electric types. It was pretty nice to have 2 easy battles back to back for a change. But our next challenge was something we were completely unprepared for that caught us totally off guard. The rock tunnel. It wasn't the trainers inside. It was just the fact that Charmander can't learn Flash. And this cave is dark. I'm talking dark. So we spent way more time in here than we should have, stumbling through the cavern and bumping our face into every possible obstacle until we eventually find our way to Celadon City. I decided it would be best to skip Lavender Town for now and instead take on Erica, since it should be an easy fight, and sure enough, it was. Erica leads with her Victory Bell, which would normally be a huge problem for anyone who didn't pick Charmander at the start, but Felton is up to the challenge and instantly roasts the plant. Next, she sends out Tangela, who faces the same fate as Victory Bell, and then finally she brings in her Vileplume, who also gets completely roasted. Talk about a forest fire. After taking out Erica, we head into the game corner where we confront the suspicious man in front of the suspicious poster, then use the suspicious switch behind the suspicious poster to open the suspicious set of stairs down to the suspicious hideout below. Being a Pokemon Pro, I expertly navigate the push-pad puzzle, then flamethrower my way through the endless hordes of rocket grunts until we arrive at the actually challenging part of this section of the game, which is our first confrontation with the rocket leader Giovanni. I didn't quite know what to expect going in against Giovanni and his team of ground types. Sure, on one hand, ground is super effective against fire, but on the other hand, this version of Giovanni's team is pretty weak overall. But regardless, he's standing in our way, so we have to send in Felton and hope for the best. First, he brings out his Onix. Since Onix has an abysmal special defense stat, I knew Flamethrower would do a considerable amount of damage, but I was kinda hoping that it would do more than just half. But sure enough, Onix goes down to a second flamethrower and out comes Rhyhorn, who gets hit with a dig, dealing just over half of its health. Then another dig is able to clean it up on the following turn. Giovanni's final Pokemon is none other than Kangaskhan, who would normally be a very intimidating Pokemon, but not for the likes of Felton, who cleans it up with a couple flamethrowers and a slash. Certainly the rest of the Giovanni battles will be that easy, right? Right? I leave the Rocket Hideout having acquired the Sylph Scope and head over to Lavender Town to sort out the spirits in the Pokemon Tower where my rival is waiting for me. This battle goes about how you would expect. Pidgeotto comes out first and quickly gets turned into a McDonald's 5-piece nugget, followed by Wartortle, who goes down to 3 slashes. He sends in Growlithe, who lowers my attack with its ability Intimidate, which is a bit of a problem. But not to worry, a single dig is able to show this dog who's the real alpha. Our rival's penultimate Pokemon is a pile of eggs, who gets turned into a nice breakfast, and finally he brings in his Kadabra, who always goes for Disable, so a Metal Claw and a Slash will take out this wannabe magician. From here I continue my way up the Pokemon Tower, defeating the ghostly girls in my way, before making it all the way to the top of the tower. It's here that I find this spooky Marowak, who actually does manage to cause me some problems. First off, I hit it with a Slash, which does next to no damage, as Marowak sets up a Focus Energy, and at this point it's starting to look bad. In all my challenges that I've done, I don't think I've ever lost that battle before. After I make my way all the way back up to the top of the Pokemon Tower, the second battle goes more how you would expect. Finally, at the top of the tower, I find some rocket grunts holding an old man hostage, so after defeating them with my little lizard, I rescue the old man, who shows me his Pokeflute. With our Pokeflute and lead singer Charmander, we take our 2-man band on the road over to Fuchsia City, where we can take on Koga. Koga and his poison types can actually be a bit of a challenge in these games because his Muck is actually a pretty strong and annoying Pokemon to deal with. We bump our way through the invisible walls until we reach the center of the gym and challenge the Ninja Master. Koga leads with his Coughing, who I stupidly try to hit with a dig while getting poisoned in the process. But not to worry, a single flamethrower takes out the Coughing. Unfortunately, at this point, Felton is poisoned going in against Muck. We go for a super effective dig and watch as the Muck starts to set up the most annoying move in the game, Minimize, which if you don't know raises the user's evasiveness. That means that my moves can very easily miss. And if you've ever played Pokemon before, you'll know that +1 evasion for your enemy equals 0% accuracy for your attacks. And then when its evasion is set up and we're missing all our moves and we're poisoned, we eventually just die. I challenged Koga multiple times and I just kept getting rolled by this big pile of goop. And on top of that, Muck also has access to acid armor, which significantly raises its defense, making it even more annoying. As you might expect, this is a pretty bad situation for me, and I lost this fight more times than I care to admit. I was worried that this was gonna become another Misty or Brock gym fight where we were here for hours. But we kept retrying and eventually this happened. Koga again starts off with coughing, only this time I hit it with a flamethrower as opposed to a dig, which takes it out in one hit. But then he brings in Muck. I started by hitting it with a flamethrower, hoping for a burn that I unfortunately don't get. Then Muck goes for acid armor, raising his defense as I click another flamethrower, which lands and gets a critical hit to take it out. This is by far the best position we had ever been in this fight. We still have most of our health, we're not poisoned, and we don't have to deal with that annoying Muck. Next comes Koga's second coughing, who once again goes down to a flamethrower, and then finally we come face to face with Wheezing. Wheezing is only 4 levels below Felton at this point, so a flamethrower only does about half of its health, but thankfully we outspeed it and we're able to hit it with a second flamethrower, winning us the battle. I'll be honest with you, I did not expect Koga to be that hard. With that win under my belt, I have to head on a little safari to get the HM for Surf as well as the gold teeth so I can get strength later. We do all that, then we head on to Saffron City, where we have yet another extremely challenging battle waiting for us with our rival. I make my way through Silphco, obliterating every Team Rocket grunt who so much as looks at me funny, until I find my rival Water, who decides that right now is a good time for a battle. He leads with Pidgeot, which is pretty terrifying. I throw out a Metal Claw and it does virtually no damage, but I need the attack buff, so I just keep going, and of course I don't get it. This time I don't take any chances with the Pidgeot, and I use a flamethrower turn 1, which does over half its health. I follow this up with a Slash, which is so close to taking it out. One more Slash takes out the Pidgeot, but at this point I'm so low that I definitely can't take on this Blastoise, and I go down to a Water Gun on the next turn. At this point I knew I had to change up my strategy, and so I decided I would come back to Silphco at a later date with just a little bit more firepower. I headed over to look for the leftovers by where you first encounter Snorlax, but I realized that in this game you can only find it with an item finder, which you can only get if you've completed a certain percentage of the Pokedex, and I can literally only use Charmander, so we didn't get it. But anyway, I head back to Fuchsia City and teach Charmander Strength, since it's slightly more powerful and more consistent than Slash. At this point my plan is simple. I need to avoid my rival until I absolutely cannot avoid battling him. Fortunately for us, you can skip Saffron City and actually go straight to the 7th gym by surfing down to Cinnabar Island from Pallet Town. This is where we find the gym leader Blaine. But before we can battle him, first we have to go deal with the Pokemon Mansion to get the keys to the gym. I'm gonna level with you, this mansion is my least favorite part of any Pokemon game ever. It is so boring and so annoying. Regardless, I suck it up and finish my time there pretty quickly, then go to challenge Blaine. After easily acing his quiz, we can finally challenge this big bald boy. And this fight proved to be more challenging than you would expect. I initially tried going for Metal Claw against Growlithe, trying to get an attack buff as it hits me with Fire Blast. Then I used Dig to avoid one of its attacks and just barely failed to take it out thanks to our attack being dropped by Intimidate. Thankfully though, this dog takes care of that itself with the recoil from its takedown. Next out is Ponyta, and I go for Dig as the horse uses Bounce, which boinks us on the head and takes us out. I try this battle again and again and again. And I know Blaine is a powerful gym leader, but realistically, this shouldn't be that hard. In order to win this battle, I know I'm gonna need to hit flamethrowers on the Growlithe because of Intimidate lowering my attack, and then I'm gonna have to hit Strength on the Ponyta and Rapidash since they're immune to fire type attacks thanks to their ability. And finally, I need to hit Arcanine with the critical Dig, since at this point our attack will be dropped by 2 stages by 2 different Intimidates. But I'm really struggling with taking special attacks from Blaine's Pokemon, so I decided to take a break and head out to sea to feed Felton copious amounts of fresh calamari in the form of Tentacool straight from the ocean. This is in an effort to add special defense EVs to our Charmander to make it that much more durable in this fight. I also took some time to get some special attack EVs and defense EVs by taking out Horsey, Seadra, and Shelder. Then after hours of changing strategies, trying new things, and failing many times, I had this battle. First out is Growlithe, who takes huge damage from a Dig while he misses a Fire Blast. Then 2 flamethrowers are enough to take the dog down. In comes Ponytail, who goes for a bounce and outspeeds me, so I go for a dig to take it out. Next up we have the big pony Rapidash, who gets hit by a powerful strength before it uses bounce as well. Since I outspeed this horse, I go for dig to avoid the incoming damage, then I'm able to hit back and take it into the red. Next it goes for a Fire Blast, which does about 1/3 of my health, and on the following turn Blaine uses his Hyper Potion, so a couple more hits of strength and dig are able to take it out. And now finally he's down to just his Arcanine. I take yet another attack drop from the second Intimidate, meaning now I'm at -2 attack, but I go for a dig anyway to avoid the incoming Fire Blast. Then on the next turn I actually land a clutch critical hit. Arcanine hits me with a strong takedown that I barely survive as I hit back with strength, securing the victory for King Felton. With that surprisingly difficult win under our belt, it was about time to head back to Silphco and take on our rival once again. But with all these new EVs and all the experience and expertise we got from beating Blaine, I had a sense of optimism that this time would be different. Water starts off with his Pidgeot, and so Charmander is able to use Strength twice to take it out with ease. But then comes the biggest threat, Blastoise. And Blastoise comes in and takes out Felton with 2 quick water guns. At this point, I start to think through what I actually need to do to beat this fight. Pidgeot is easy, it's never going to be the problem. It's just this Blastoise that keeps ending our attempts. So we keep trying the fight over and over until we manage to get a lucky critical hit against the Blastoise, which gets us over the major hurdle in this battle, and with Blastoise out of the way, everything else should be pretty smooth sailing. After taking the dog down, the eggs are back, and this time we decide to cook them sunny side up. And finally, out comes Water's Alakazam, who is a bit scary, but thanks to the level gap and a throw from this dummy using Future Sight, I'm able to take it out and put another immensely challenging fight behind me. We go outside and heal before heading back into Silphco to take on the big Mafia boss himself, Giovanni. You would think that this battle would be a tough one, especially given the fact that Felton is weak to 4 of Giovanni's Pokemon, but it was actually surprisingly easy. First out is Nidorino, who does live through a dig and hits us with a critical horn attack, but then we take it out with strength and come face to face with Rhyhorn, who gets the same treatment as Nidorino, getting hit with 2 digs. Next up, Giovanni throws out his Kangaskhan, who hits me with a fake out, putting me into the red and flinching us in the process. I hit back with the flamethrower on the next turn, but I'm just too low on health to win this first attempt. In our second attempt, we get some better luck and make it all the way to the Nidoqueen, who we take out with a flamethrower after surviving some double kicks. Given everything that we've been through so far, a nice easy fight against Giovanni is very appreciated. Evil boss out of the way, it's time to take our momentum with us into the battle against the next gym leader, Sabrina. We head over to the Saffron Gym, and with Felton being as over-leveled as he is, Sabrina easily folds under our might. She starts off with Kadabra, who goes down to a single strength. Next up is Mr. Mime, who goes down to a strength and a flamethrower after setting up a reflect. From here, Sabrina brings in her Venomoth that she has on her team for some reason. As you would expect, we easily torch the bug before Sabrina finally sends in her Alakazam. Alakazam does have a pretty high special attack, so Psychic does a fair bit of damage, but we're able to live through that and take it out with a couple strengths to take the fight home. And just like that, 7 out of the 8 gyms are done. The problem that we have is that the next gym is another fight with Giovanni. Yeah, more ground and rock. I think back on all the trouble and trauma that we have from Brock and Misty in the beginning of the game, and I feel like we're about to come full circle right back to that horrible place. We head back towards Viridian City thinking about every possible way that we have to beat Giovanni, but we might have gotten a little bit ahead of ourselves because before we even get to the gym leader, we lose to a random trainer in the gym. Yeah, this might be a little bit harder than I thought it would be. I heal up Felton, head back into the gym, and lose to the same trainer again. Alright, forget Giovanni, forget our rival, forget the champion. This fight might be the hardest one in the game. Let's try that again. Random Trainer 6 starts off by sending out Marowak, who deals a lot of damage with its Bone Meringue while just barely surviving our flamethrower. The trainer heals it up, but not to worry, a second flamethrower is more than enough to take it out. Next up, he sends in a second Marowak, but it goes down to a single flamethrower, and finally, out comes Rhyhorn. I go for a dig against the trainer's Rhyhorn while it goes for a takedown. Dig does about half of its health as it goes for a scary face. One more dig and I'm able to take it down. Next up is Nidorina, who goes down to a single flamethrower. Then finally the trainer sends in his Nidoqueen, who hits me with a critical fake out that kills Felton. You gotta be kidding me. 3 deaths on a random gym trainer? Okay, let's try that again. Flamethrower the 2 Marowaks, dig the Rhyhorn, then a Flamethrower. Flamethrower the Nidorina, then Flamethrower the Nidoqueen. Okay, what was so hard about that? This does not give me very much confidence going in to fight Giovanni, but we push on and heal up, then head into our final fight. Giovanni leads with his Rhyhorn, who I hit with a dig, but of course this Rhyhorn knows Earthquake, which does double damage to people who are in the process of using dig. Should have probably seen that coming. Anyway, on our next attempt, Rhyhorn comes out and I go for a Metal Claw, which does pitiful damage as this Rhino goes for Scary Face. I use Metal Claw again and Rhyhorn uses Scary Face again, then one more Metal Claw and I'm able to take it out. But at this point, our speed is so incredibly low. Up next is Giovanni's Dugtrio, which goes for a Slash while I hit it with a powerful Metal Claw. Then Dugtrio goes for Earthquake, which knocks out Felton. I kept attempting this battle and I kept losing until we had this magical attempt. Rhyhorn comes in, then after 2 attacks, we're able to get it down into heal range and burn one of Giovanni's full restores. From here we go for Metal Claw, but don't get the attack boost. Then we take out the Rhyhorn with the Metal Claw and a Flamethrower. Next up is Dugtrio, who goes down to a single Flamethrower. Next up is Nidoqueen, who we hit with the Flamethrower, taking out about half of its health. It fires back with an Earthquake that we barely survive and finish it off on the next turn. Giovanni's penultimate Pokemon is Nidoking, who goes down to a single Flamethrower thanks to its poor defensive stats. And then finally, there's just one more Rhyhorn, who goes down to 1 HP from a Flamethrower and... But it misses the takedown! Yes! Thank goodness! That means we secure the victory. And just like that, we did it. All 8 gym badges. We fought against some of the strongest foes. Brock, Misty, Blaine, Giovanni, and of course, Water himself. But against all odds, Felton has overcome every challenge. And now it's time for us to take our place at the top of the region by defeating the Elite Four and becoming the champion. Dude, not a good time. I'm doing a whole dramatic monologue here. You're really ruining my vibe. My rival jumps me on Route 22 demanding a battle, so we happily oblige. And in a tale as old as time, we end up getting washed away by his Blastoise. Maybe Charmander doesn't have what it takes to become champion. Is this the end of the run? Well, obviously not, because there's so much time left in the video. Well, right after I defeated Giovanni, I saw that I had the TM for Double Team, which you may know is that annoying move that boosts a Pokemon's evasion. It turns out in this game, Charmander can actually learn this move, but to do that, I'll have to get rid of one of my other trusty attacks. I decide to get rid of Metal Claw since I swear, throughout this entire playthrough, I've maybe had 4 attack boosts from it total. With our new strategy unlocked, we head in to try our rival fight again. Water leads with Pidgeot, and we spam Double Team enough times to get Felton to max evasiveness, but we took so many hits in the process from Pidgeot that now we're so low that Felton goes down on the next turn. I try again, but this time I knock out the Pidgeot and set up against Rhyhorn since it has a lot of moves with lower accuracy. It works out, but we go down before defeating all of our rivals' Pokemon. I kept trying and trying and trying, and I ended up doing this battle for hours until this happened. Pidgeot comes out, and I set up a Double Team. When I'm at max evasiveness, Pidgeot goes down to 2 Flamethrowers. I've been in this position countless times and still lost, but this time feels different. Rhyhorn comes out and takes big damage from Flamethrower before missing a takedown and then going down to another Flamethrower on the next turn. Next is Blastoise, who I opt to use Strength on to get that little bit of chip damage so that Water won't heal it in case it gets into range. After 3 Strengths and Blastoise missing all of its attacks, I use Flamethrower and get the clutch burn. The chip damage from the burn plus another Flamethrower is just enough to take it out. And then it's smooth sailing from here. Growlithe is taken down by 2 digs. Next out is Execute, who gets turned into an Eggs Benedict with Flamethrower. And then finally we face Alakazam, who gets put into the yellow with Flamethrower as it goes for a Future Sight for some reason, meaning one more Flamethrower secures our W. Finally, we did it. We beat Water once and for all. No more rival battles in this game, right? There was truly no stopping me now. I felt untouchable. I smoked my way through Victory Road road, burning any and all threats that got in my way. Then I marched my way up to the steps of the Pokemon League with a burning desire to become the champion of Kanto, and no one was going to stand in my way. Except maybe the 3 trainers in the Elite Four who Charmander is weak to. In Generation 1, some of the Elite Four members actually have 2 types that they use on their teams as opposed to 1. Lorelei specializes in water and ice Pokemon, which is troubling. Bruno specializes in fighting and rock types, so we're weak to this one too. And then finally, Lance uses dragon types, which resist my fire type moves. I had a feeling this was not going to be easy. I spent the same amount of time beating the Elite Four that I had spent in the entire playthrough up to this point. So how did it go down? Lorelei is first and she leads off with her Dugong. Felton goes for a turn 1 flamethrower, which does pitiful damage to Dugong as it surfs us away and puts us in the red. It's here that I decide to try a different strategy and start setting up double team, but we get hit with another powerful surf that obliterates us again. I realize that Lorelei is completely out of our league at this point and she's just the first trainer, so I go back to the drawing board and think of a few different strategies that I can use to make it through this entire gauntlet. First, I delete strength off of Charmander, replacing it with Dragon Claw. This lets me have a super effective move against Lance. I also get the TMs for Dig and Brick Break so that I can teach them to Charmander throughout the Elite Four when they become necessary. I also level up Felton a little bit more to the point where I'm able to take out Lorelei's Dugongs in 2 hits instead of 3. And then I spent hours trying to defeat this lady. In total, it took me over 2.5 hours of gameplay just to beat her. Here's how I did it. First out is her Dugong, and thanks to my training and super effective Brick Breaks, I'm able to 2-hit KO the Seal as it sets up Hail. Next up, she sends out Cloyster, which is slower than Felton, so turn 1 I set up a double team as it uses Dive. Dive lets me set up another double team, which causes Cloyster to miss on the following turn. I keep using double team until I'm at max evasiveness. You're probably wondering, why didn't we do this against Dugong? Well, there's actually a very specific reason for this. If we can get Felton to just the right amount of damage taken, all of Lorelei's Pokemon will see the potential to kill with their water type attacks. This is especially good because it means that her Slowbro will always try to attack instead of using Amnesia to buff its special defense. Letting Dugong set up Hail ensures I take enough chip damage to get into this range even with our boosted evasion. Now at max evasiveness, I hit Cloyster with the Flamethrower to take it out. Next up is Lapras, who goes down to 5 Brick Breaks while missing all of its attacks. Lorelei used almost all of her healing items on Lapras, meaning the rest of the battle is pretty much a cakewalk. Slowbro comes out and goes down to a couple Dragon Claws as it helplessly tries to hit us. Finally, out comes Lorelei's last Pokemon, Jinx, who thankfully is just an Ice type with no extra water BS. So as you would imagine, it goes down to a Flamethrower, which means I have finally defeated Lorelei. I cannot tell you how much of a relief this was. But then I remembered that there were 3 more fights after this and I got a lot less excited. In the next room, I challenge Bruno, who's supposed to be a fighting type guy, but in reality, he's more of a rock type guy. First, he leads with Onix, who goes down to 2 flamethrowers as it hits us with a rock tomb. Next is his Hitmonchan, who hits us with a Sky Uppercut to knock out Felton. Okay, this is probably gonna be tough, but hopefully not quite as tough as the last fight. I tried using different strategies here for a while, but the only way I was able to get through any of these immensely challenging battles is by going back to the old ways of evasion strats. I kept trying over and over until this happened. Bruno starts out with his Onix, and I begin setting up double team since its main attack Rock Tomb isn't 100% accurate, but it manages to break through my evasiveness and hits me with the Rock Tomb, lowering my speed. Once I set up 3 double teams, I'm able to use Flamethrower twice to defeat the Onix. With our evasion boosted, we should hopefully be in a perfect position to sweep the rest of Bruno's team. Next up is Hitmonchan, who gets through our evasion and hits us with a Sky Uppercut, doing massive damage. I fire back with the Flamethrower, putting Hitmonchan into the red, but Bruno heals up. Next turn, a Flamethrower doesn't quite kill the Hitmonchan, but it does get the burn, which is enough to finish it off. Then out comes the big muscle man himself, Machamp, who seems to have spent so long buffing its own attack in the gym that it forgot to buff its defense, so it goes down to a single Flamethrower. Next is another Onix, who once again goes down to a couple Flamethrowers, and then finally we have Hitmonlee, who misses a Mega Kick and then goes down to a Flamethrower and a Brick Break. Bruno was way easier than Lorelei, but after the battle, I realized that I was extremely low on PP, and to make matters worse, I didn't bring any elixirs to restore it. But thankfully, the battle against Agatha should be much easier than the previous 2. Confident in our ability ability, we headed into the fight and instantly lost. I tried this battle a couple of times, but the low PP situation we were in made it virtually impossible. Begrudgingly, I decided to reset out of the Elite Four and go grab some PP restoring items, which of course means I have to take on Lorelei and Bruno yet again. But with our new knowledge that we gained from before, this next round was considerably easier. I made my way all the way back to Agatha, and with Felton fully loaded, none of Agatha's Pokemon can withstand Flamethrower, so it was a pretty straightforward battle, and after a few attempts, we were able to roast her entire squad. For those of you keeping count at home, that's 3 out of the 4 Elite Four members down. Excited, we headed into the final chamber to battle the last member of the Elite Four, Lance. Lance is arguably the most powerful Elite Four member of all time. His dragons hit hard, resist Charmander, and all have decent defensive capabilities, so this is not going to be a walk in the park. Lance starts off with Gyarados, which is instantly an issue because not only is it a super strong water type, but it also has the ability Intimidate, which lowers our attack. Dragon Claw hits it hard, but not nearly hard enough, and we end up losing to this big worm on our first attempt. We try again, but this time decide to use Flamethrower instead of Dragon Claw. Flamethrower does about the same damage as Dragon Claw, but has the chance to burn, which we luckily land. This reduces the damage that the physical attacker Gyarados is able to do, so we're able to get it down into the range where Lance heals it, but unfortunately, even with the lucky burn, we're still not able to make it past this great beast. But I could not get past this Gyarados until I returned to the tried and true evasion strats. Upon my triumphant return to our best strategy, we had potentially the luckiest battle of this entire playthrough. Lance's Gyarados comes out, and I set up some evasiveness as I get hit with the Dragon Rage. I set up more double teams until my evasion is maxed out, and even with all this evasion, Gyarados still hits me with the Hyper Beam, and Felton lives on just 1 HP. I hit Gyarados with Dragon Claw a couple times before Lance heals it up. I don't mind Lance healing Gyarados because it means I won't have to deal with heals on his later Pokemon. From here, Gyarados misses every single attack before ultimately going down. Next out is Aerodactyl, and a couple Brick Breaks take it out as it misses all of its attacks. From here, he sends out Dragonite, the squishy but deadly dragon who misses everything it tries to throw at me and goes down to a couple Dragon Claws. Next up is Dragonair, who goes for an Outrage and misses again. Then it meets the same fate as its friends. Lance's final Pokemon is his second Dragonair, who comes in and does the same thing that every other Pokemon has done so far, miss all its attacks and die to my claws. And just like that, we've done it. We defeated the Elite Four with just a Charmander. Wait, what do you mean there's another rival battle? How did he get here? Just before we got here, our rival battled his way through and became the newest champion. This is the worst case scenario. I think back to our fabled encounter in Cerulean City, the horrendous battle in Silphco, and our latest bout on Route 22, and I know this battle will be mine. Water sends out his Pidgeot that has caused me so many problems throughout this playthrough, and I start setting up evasion. But then I realize Pidgeot has Aerial Ace. Aerial Ace is a move that is guaranteed to hit you regardless of your evasiveness, and to make matters worse, this Pidgeot also has Sand Attack, meaning it can lower my accuracy. This is not good. I set up 5 double teams and had my accuracy drop to -2, which makes my Flamethrower miss, and just like that, we take yet another W. This sets a bad precedent that would haunt me for the rest of these battles. And you know how I said that this would be an insanely difficult fight? Well, it turns out that was the understatement of the century, because this battle took me 3 full hours to beat. That's 3 hours of getting past Pidgeot and losing to Blastoise or Rhydon. That's 3 hours of evasion, burns, lucky crits, and broken dreams. I was about to give up. You can't beat Pokemon Fire Red with just a Charmander. It's simply not possible. One thing I hadn't considered throughout this entire playthrough is Charmander's ability. Charmander has the ability Blaze. What Blaze does is when Charmander's low on health, it powers up its fire-type moves. So the strategy here is simple. Let Pidgeot put me in Blaze range, set up some evasiveness, and then torch the bird with the Flamethrower. Then hope and pray to Arceus that we don't get hit as we finish out the fight. We need to get pretty lucky here, so let's give it a shot. First out is Pidgeot, and I do exactly what I said before. I use double team and Pidgeot uses Sand Attack, dropping my accuracy. I set up 2 more double teams, then hit Pidgeot with a crit Flamethrower while in Blaze range to take it out. Out comes Rhydon, and I just barely managed to finish my setup to +6 evasion. Then we take out Rhydon with a couple of brick breaks as it misses all of its attacks. Next out is Blastoise, who I hit with the flamethrower that does just about 1/3 of its health before landing an extremely lucky critical hit on the next turn to take it out. From here, he sends in his Alakazam, who goes down to a flamethrower but uses Future Sight first. Then the eggs enter the fray, but this time they're evolved and angry. But it's still not good enough, and I turn the tree into scrambled eggs with the side of salad, this time with yet another critical hit. Next is Arcanine, and as the dog comes in, the Future Sight attack comes through, but thankfully it misses. Arcanine goes for extreme speed and misses, while Flamethrower does just under half of its HP. One more Flamethrower puts Arcanine in full restore range, and I keep firing off flamethrowers, hoping to be able to finish it off after the heal. Luckily, Arcanine keeps missing extreme speed, and I keep hitting my flamethrowers, eventually taking it down with yet another critical hit. And just like that, we did it. That little Charmander I found in Oak's lab had come a long way, and we had defeated the entire region and become the champion of Kanto. Felton may have never grown his wings, but he certainly proved everyone wrong. So yes, you can beat Pokemon Fire Red with only a Charmander. Subscribe!